Yo, what's going on guys? J Cloud here. Today we're here to discuss Jujutsu Kaisen Chapter 166. Going to be doing Jujutsu Kaisen content from now on alongside with Black Clover. So if you guys are excited for Jujutsu Kaisen content remain on the channel, be sure to get this video to 500 likes and consider subscribing to the channel when notification bell is on. Now let's talk about Jujutsu Kaisen Chapter 166. Tokyo #1 Colony. Alright, so the chapter starts off, we see a flashback of Higuruma as a law apprentice. We then see a man appear before him named Yoshizawa, which is most likely implied that this is the guy he works under. He tells him that he viewed the draft that Higuruma had and said that it was splendid work. Yoshizawa also brings up to Higuruma that, if I remember correctly, you were inspiring to become either a prosecutor or a lawyer. Well, how about becoming a judge? Even though this goes against what Higuruma wants to become, he does not want to become a judge, even though it's very poetic because of the way his domain expansion works. We then go to the current timeline to see YUJI'S death penalty taking place, and Higuruma now has a execution sword. And I gotta say, besides the sword, this trial domain expansion is pretty OP because while you're in it fighting against Higuruma in this domain expansion, you cannot use your curse technique. But good news for YUJI is that he doesn't have a curse technique, so this takes away his curse energy. But YUJI is so strong fighting against Higuruma, he doesn't necessarily need curse energy to tank some of these blows. Now what makes Higuruma's sword pretty broken is that getting hit by this by one slash is an immediate death. The opponent will die. So imagine how tough it is fighting someone on a level of Higuruma. You cannot use your curse technique, which makes a lot of sense why he was such a tough opponent and killed so many people early on in the Calling games. Where in YUJI'S case, he has to rely purely on his base strength with no curse energy at all. Higuruma then talks about that empathizing with someone else's heart means you understand that person's flaws. A victim's flaw, an assailant flaw. Day after day I've been tired and sick of it. Hideous. I come to think of that whenever I approach someone. He then tells YUJI that he is no exception because all people are flawed and hideous, no matter how noble of a soul you wish to have. You won't find anything more than that. And the way he continues on this speech, it definitely comes off as projecting. He's generalizing, of course, but he also comes as projecting these feelings, almost as if he doesn't believe it, but he's forcing himself, trying to make himself believe it. A reality of the world that he created within his own head because of everything he went through and what he saw. But I have to say that this is amazing writing here from Akutami. As the fight continues on, we see that YUJI is using everything in the room to get the upper hand on Higuruma. And he starts to throw every chair in the room at Higuruma just so he can get a distraction, so he can go in for a potential attack. We also see that he tricked Higuruma by taking off his sweater as a decoy so Higuruma can think that as YUJI. And he sort of fell for YUJI'S bait here, but he was able to recover before YUJI landed some damage at this moment. And you just have to give YUJI credit here because he's fighting against someone who has an execution sword, and knowing that one attack from this sword is over for YUJI, where YUJI has to do decisive blows to get rid of Higuruma. But besides that, I'm loving the fighting and the choreograph here. As we see YUJI and Higuruma, they are both ready to attack at the same time. We get hit with another flashback. And Higuruma in this flashback, he talks about that he does not want to be a judge. He's sorry, but he has to turn down this promotion. He's just not interested, and he's not interested in promotions. That's just not suited for him. And that's what he told his mentor. However, that recurrent line that he mentioned early in this chapter is that all people are flawed and hideous. But back at that time, at least up till then, that's what he truly believed. He believed that this impurity that's not present in other organisms is something that should be present. And this is where Higuruma is now having second thoughts and getting an epiphany, because while fighting YUJI, it sparks something inside of him. Because he's just wondering, why did YUJI admit to that crime, the crime that happened in Shibuya? Because we already know that it was Sukuna. Sukuna was the one that killed all those people by taking over YUJI'S body. But none of that truly matters to YUJI because YUJI is the one that's carrying around Sukuna. He is the vessel. So whatever Sukuna does, YUJI is taking the blame for it. And this is very consistent to YUJI'S character because in chapter 120, when he saw the destruction that Sukuna caused, he said, "At this rate, I'm nothing but a murderer." This man was so disgusted seeing the aftermath of Sukuna's destruction that he threw up. We saw that he was so hurt about this that he broke down crying and felt as though he should die already. So if Sukuna in the future goes around and killing more people, YUJI is going to carry around that burden forever. And I believe this can make or break YUJI'S mental state. Because Higuruma finally gets the evidence that points to Sukuna from judgment that YUJI was not the one that killed those people, it was Sukuna. So Higuruma is now wondering why. Why would you admit to something like that? And he starts to sympathize with YUJI. And right before he was going to strike YUJI with his execution sword, and YUJI was going in for a punch, he deactivates his curse technique. And this lets us know that The belief he has about everyone is hideous, everyone is flawed, he really cannot sense that or see that within Yuji, because let's be honest here, Yuji is just about flawless as they come. However, Higuruma cannot kill someone who didn't commit the crime or judge them. It goes against the roots of his belief. And then we see that once he deactivates his curse technique, Yuji goes in for a punch and it sends him flying. And Yuji, he picks up on this as well. He's wondering, why did he deactivate his curse technique? He's like, hey, why did you do that? Higuruma then reads off Penal Code Article 39, Section 1. If a person lacks cognitive ability or capacity of control, they are considered non-compos mentis, which compos mentis means that someone has control over their mind, which in this Sukuna situation, Yuji was considered non-compos mentis, so he could not be judged. So he tells Yuji that he is the one that is innocent, he is not at fault here. But it's so funny seeing Yuji's face here, because while Higuruma is telling him that he's innocent and going over everything, Yuji's face is just sitting there like, hey, how do you know about Sukuna? But Higuruma only knows this based off the information and the evidence that was given to him by judgment. However, Yuji tells Higuruma that still, it's my fault. And it's because I'm weak. Yuji then goes on to ask him, why did you deactivate your curse technique? And that's when Higuruma said that he went back to his roots. Because people who are weak as you are probably still around. He then tells Yuji to have a seat so they can talk, and he's going to give him his 100 points. And I gotta say, I really love this character moment from Higuruma. He's already becoming one of my favorite characters in JJK, and I already made a Black Clover tier list of my favorite characters, so one day I gotta make my tier list of my favorite characters in JJK. So if you guys want to see that, let me know in the comment section, because I will do it. He then asks Yuji, have you ever killed someone out of your own volition? And Yuji said, yes, I have. Which Yuji is referring to what happened in the Death Painting arc when he killed one of the cursed wound. And during that situation, he felt really horrible, because during that situation, he thought that the cursed users were cursed spirits in the beginning of the fight. And at the end of the chapter, Higuruma says, I see. That must have felt the worst. And I have to say that this was a really good chapter, because I can see this potential bond that Yuji and Higuruma can have throughout the series, because they are very relatable to one another. And I can see that Higuruma can take a stance and will have a strong role during this whole situation when we get that execution arc later in the series, and proving that Yuji is innocent from the crimes that Sukuna has been committing. I can definitely see him being potentially Yuji's lawyer. That would be awesome. However, I don't want to give my hopes up too much, because when it comes to death in JJK, there is no guarantee. There's no guarantee that this guy may survive this arc. And at the same time, I don't see Akutami bringing and introducing such an important character just to kill him off this soon. But let's be honest, the Culling Games is only going to get more brutal from here out. There's no guarantee that in this arc, Sukuna may take over Yuji's body again, which I certainly believe may happen. Because I truly believe that if you subscribe to the channel with notification bells on, we can all find out what can happen in this crazy arc together, right? You guys have an awesome life. Take care of yourselves, stay blessed, and I'm out.